Hi, everybody. My name is Vishnu, and we have Zach Oscar here. He is the account director at Viral Nation, and yeah, pleasure talking with you, man. You have a really interesting background. One of the things that stood out was your experience with esports advisory. So we'll touch on that for sure. But yeah, but if you want to introduce yourself, please go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, sure. I'm Zach, and thanks for having me, Vishnu. As you mentioned, I'm a senior account director at Viral Nation,
Mhm.
where my client is Meta. So all the work that I do in my day-to-day generally focuses on Meta and the work that we're doing there.
Mhm.
Um, I come from a background very much focused on gaming and esports, which you touched on. I've only been agency side thus far in my career. First, I was on the insights and research side of the house. Then I moved more into the client services account side, which I've stayed in.
Mhm.
And I'm really enjoying just being a part of this marketing industry and getting
Yeah.
to work on communities that I'm passionate about, being gaming mainly.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. How does the industry work in general? I have some experience with the influencer marketing side of the business.
Hmm.
I briefly with one of my co-founders, I briefly set up a small project to see if it was a viable agency style where we connect like agencies with influencers. It kind of fizzled out, but I learned a lot of things from that project. But yeah, curious on how you're positioning in the market and how you specifically relate to Meta and their accounts.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, your first question there about like how the industry works and whatnot, to say broadly, the I think in sports sponsorship has been happening for forever, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
People love sports and traditional sports, and in many ways, the gaming and esports industries are similar to things that people love in traditional media, right? So, Love Island is happening, right, in the
Yes.
US right now, and what you've seen is that a lot of the commercials that are airing on Peacock for the Love Island, episodes are featuring the talent that have been in previous seasons of Love Island, right?
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
same thing happens in like the gaming and esports ecosystem, right?
Right.
Those people are not probably as well media trained, although I don't know that you could argue that people on Love Island are media trained anyway, but they are authentic, nerds like the rest
Uh-huh.
of us who enjoy the space. And it's actually, as I say that, but the space has become so um broad in that you saw when Fortnite first entered the scene, people like Travis Scott and Drake and football players, whenever we're all starting to play these games and stream them and do collaborations with other major content creators in the space. So I'm yapping a little bit, but what I really mean to say is that this industry and the way that it functions with influencer marketing isn't necessarily that much different from anything that you see in other influencer marketing spaces. However, I would
Uh-huh.
argue that the gaming industry as a whole, which big reminder, you have to keep mentally separated from esports, right? Because not
Mhm.
everybody, it's like what I like to say is, let's say you and I went to a basketball court and started like playing a pickup game, right?
Yeah.
We're not going to say that we're in the NBA. We're not
Right.
saying, oh, we're basketball players, right? We're just like, hey, we're playing some basketball because we're having fun, right?
Uh-huh.
That's sort of the separation between gaming and esports as well, right?
Uh-huh.
Everybody can be a gamer. Everybody can game. Everyone probably plays some kind of video game, whether it's on their phone or on computer or on console, but not everybody is an esports athlete, right? And I know some people laugh at the use of athlete, but it's a lot of
It
training
is.
and
Yeah.
time and energy that people put into becoming the best at their craft, right? So
Uh-huh.
this is all to say, similar industries, influencer marketing, I think, has a very linear, or sorry, there's a through line between these industries that is very prevalent, which is that people want to hear from the voices that they consider authentic in the space, right? And that's what I seek to do in all of my work, whether that was with previous clients like Samsung and AT&T or with my current client with Meta, right? We want to find creators who are organically passionate about the products or services that we are marketing, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
for me, the of course, none of my clients want to hear me say this, right? But of course, the goal is, of course, to sell and make money and, drive
Right.
business goals and whatever, right?
Yeah.
To me, that is achieved if I achieve my own goal, which is to make cool shit for the industry, right? If I can make cool shit for the industry, if I can do cool shit with creators and they can genuinely feel connected to what we're having them do, everything else will follow.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome, man. Yeah, the marketing industry has changed from, like, let's say, like 100 years ago. You probably have
Hmm.
television. Everybody in the world sees the same ad, and then you get newspapers, and you have radios and radio channels. It narrows down with specific types of ads you make, and then over the past, let's say, 10, 15 years, the types of advertising has become, like, extremely niche. And if you
Mm.
go, I don't know, people who play Valorant versus Fortnite, they might not be the same audience. And if you have a specific ad for Valorant, and maybe you have,
Hmm.
like, specific creators within Valorant that have, custom projects with one type of influencer,
Hmm.
converts much better. So it's more, it's starting to get so one-to-one that the it's an interesting industry altogether, I'd say.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
and you mentioned something about, the different types of audiences, right? And I think what people miss is that traditional media marketing doesn't necessarily land with gaming audiences, right? Um, the Super Bowl, I love talking about the Super Bowl because it's the only time anyone gives a shit about commercials, right?
Mhm.
And when the Super Bowl is happening, everyone's like, "Oh, I'm tuning in," and "Oh my God, that Budweiser commercial made me cry." And at the end of the day, the Budweiser commercial has some dogs and a fucking horse in it, right? Nothing to do with beer, nothing, right?
Yeah.
But as Freud taught us, right, everything can be subliminal messaging for something else, right? And the point is to drive feelings of warmth and nostalgia and whatever it is that make people associate it with that drink, right?
Hmm.
In gaming, that's not really, some companies will do the same thing where they'll try to be like, oh, if I just take this, known content creator and slap them in my ad, like everyone's going to be excited about it, right? But the reality is, gaming audiences are used to seeing real gameplay, right? If a game is being marketed to them, yes, a trailer is cool or a cinematic that shows really awesome action sequences is cool, but what does the game actually look like? How does
Hmm.
the product or service being marketed actually impact the user, right? And so the glitz and glam of, you know, putting filters on images and trying to make it look sexy so that everyone thinks it's the best thing since sliced bread, the gaming audiences aren't as susceptible to that as people might think. So
Hmm.
where I'm going with all that is creative should never be repurposed basically for gaming audiences, right? If I'm making a bounty paper towel ad that's for like, regular TV, it's
Hmm.
highly likely that that's not going to land at all with anybody if I started to put that commercial on Twitch, let's say, right? Gamers want to see content tailored to them, and also that tailoring will pan out better in the end because
Hmm.
I know as someone who's grown up as a gamer his whole life that up until, as I mentioned, late 2010s, gaming was considered like a nerd's hobby, right? It was like, oh, people are in their mom's basement and they, barely hold a job and they're smelly and all that stuff, right? But I feel seen when I see these like highly produced and
Hmm.
interesting commercials or integrations or sponsorships with creators. I'm like, oh, okay, this brand realizes that I'm actually a valuable customer and also that I'm not the stereotypical, like many people are not a stereotypical version of what people think a gamer is. And those
Sure.
ads or sponsorships demonstrate a commitment to being like, hey, no, you're like these are all regular people and we want to make sure that they feel that they're represented in advertising.
Yeah, yeah. Gaming has become more and more mainstream. Comic Con's blowing up,
Hmm.
just the prevalence of older people starting to game from like starting to get from zero, and also continuing
Right.
to game from, let's say, from their childhood. It's still, people kind of drop off after a certain age, in the past,
Right.
but like you see less and less of that right now.
No, I mean, I think about this all the time. I'm about to turn 30, and you know, I'm
Mhm,
I'm not an older person by any means, but I'm about to turn 30, and I've realized that gaming and gaming with my friends, many of whom don't actually live near me anymore,
mhm.
is a central part of my life because it's a social network for me, right? And
Right,
it's not
right.
something that I think I'll ever end up not
Exactly.
doing, to be
Yeah.
honest, right? Like, some people say, oh, you're going to get married and have a kid, and then suddenly, it's like, I think that priorities were different for different people
Yeah.
growing up, and gaming was never that captivating, or if it was very rare for some people. And now we have entire worlds online, you know what I mean?
Hmm,
And
hmm.
that people stay connected through. So I think it's a good shift. I think it necessarily is great for the social intelligence of a lot of people, not necessarily. But that said, hopefully there are more people with that middle ground of like they not only are outside, but they can be inside too and be social
Hmm,
in all the different ways. So
hmm.
I know we kind of went on a little bit of a tangent there talking about the social implications, but I think that it's important to recognize the growth of this audience and the fact that this audience is becoming very stereotypically agnostic, right? Like everybody kind of games now.
Yeah.
In some form or another.
Yeah, yeah. What specifically, you kind of slightly went over this, but what specifically is different for advertising for gaming specific gaming, and within gaming there are a bunch of different aspects that are specific to different games. But what
Mhm.
differentiates gaming ads to, let's say, traditional media? What aspects do you think, like, let's say, hey, the hooks, the messaging within it, the types of emotion that you invoke, where
Yeah.
exactly do you think that it stands out or is different from the other channels?
Yeah, sure. If if we're talking about a commercial, right, like a traditional television style commercial,
Mhm.
it's not necessarily that different, but if you were to take the same type of creative from a traditional commercial and put it into a commercial targeting, Twitch channels or whatever, it wouldn't really be that engaging to anybody, right? People in the gaming space in on their native platform, they want to see creative that's tailored to them, right? So the
Mhm.
differences will generally be like, the use of IP, the creators or the celebrities that are involved, right? You want to see people who feel authentic to the space and not just like, oh, they just put a bounty paper towel commercial in here because
Right.
it's a bounty paper towel commercial, right? Now, what I'll say is that something that traditional advertising doesn't really do that streaming services have made possible with like and when I say streaming, I don't mean television, I mean Twitch and
Twitch.
YouTube Live and Kick and all that stuff, is that people can see products and services in real time. So one North Star we always have when it comes to our marketing on Meta, and I actually think this is a great principle outside of just gaming, right? So I've worked majority of my time at Meta on the Meta Quest, which is the VR MR headset,
Hmm,
virtual reality, mixed reality headset. And I've also done some work now with the Meta Ray-Ban displays and the Meta the Ray-Ban Metas, which are two different products actually,
hmm.
although
My
they
brother
sound very
has one of
similar.
those. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And always what we're trying to do is say, let's actually show people the product or service in action, right?
Hmm.
And with streaming on Twitch and YouTube and whatnot, that's tantamount to everything else because no one wants to hear a creator say, oh, this is the best game since sliced bread, and see 2 minutes of curated gameplay and then end, right? People want to
Hmm.
see, hey, like, what is it like to actually feel and play and the pacing and how does it look and how does it run, right? No one wants to get something that's tailored. My friends and I say all the time, I'll wait to see the reviews when it comes out, right? None
Right.
of us are
Right.
pre-ordering games anymore off of
Yeah.
a trailer because
Yeah.
it could be shit. It could be shit, right? And we don't
Right.
know. We really don't know. Whereas in I think traditional advertising, beer's a
Unless it's
beer,
GTA
right?
6, basically.
Right, right. It's like a beer is a beer, like some
Yeah.
people are gonna like it and some people aren't, but the commercial might make them want to try it. You know what I mean?
Hmm, hmm.
Um, but the commercial's never actually dissecting, here's the hops percentage in the beer or whatever. I'm not a drinker, so I don't fucking
Mhm,
know. But
mhm.
they're not breaking those things down in the same way.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, what kind of industries are actually surprisingly moving into influencer marketing into gaming specifically, that you think, hey, this is a new trend that I'm picking up on,
I don't know necessarily that it's trying to think of what I think of as new. I think when I
or
first
maybe
heard your question,
unconventional, you know?
yeah, when I first heard your question, I think that what pops up to me initially is that there are some, and I'm going to separate from influencer marketing for a second. I'm just going to
Sure.
focus on like broader marketing to games, right? To me, the question is always what, especially in gaming, right? Lifestyle, I think, is a little different because it's really like, could this lifestyle product help me in action, right? With the glasses, as an example. If I'm showing you that I'm catching POV footage and I'm, asking Meta AI things and whatever, that pretty much demonstrates itself, right?
Hmm.
in in gaming, if I'm going to disrupt the community on Twitch or YouTube or whatever and be a sponsor, something that I'm trying to think about from the jump is what am I doing to give back to this community for their time and attention, right? And for taking their favorite content creator or streamer or whatever and collaborating with them to market something, right?
Hmm.
Um, and so if you're not able to say, hey, this is what somebody who's viewing this content can get out of it outside of just making a purchase, I think that you're likely not to succeed very far, right?
Interesting.
This can be
Mhm.
anything from discounts to codes to gifted subscribers to unique in-game rewards if you sign up through different codes, right? But the point is to give them something that they can say, hey, this is adding to my experience as a member of this community. And I think a really great example of this, separate from influencer for a second, is like Riot Games, the creators of League of Legends. They've done a number of fantastic collaborations, in my opinion, where, for example, they worked with Louis Vuitton, which already you're like,
Yeah.
fashion, high fashion house, video game, like what's going
That's
on
true.
here, right?
Yeah.
And what they did was they created a skin, an in-game cosmetic for certain
Hmm.
characters using the Louis Vuitton monogram, co-developed with one of the Louis Vuitton uh, Altier designers, right? So
Right.
they had a real person at Louis Vuitton talk to the designers at League of Legends and say, hey, like, here's how I would make this
Which
character's
makes some
outfit.
sense. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was created. And the skin was maybe $20 in game,
Hmm.
right? And that's a
Hmm.
lot for a cosmetic for a digital game. But most people are not dropping hundreds of dollars on Louis Vuitton, right? Or if they are, it's something they're saving up for and really like taking their time with, whatever. This is an example of something that's instantly gained, right? It's a $20 thing if you really wanted it, and you own it forever, right? You own this piece of, Louis Vuitton forever. So
Hmm.
it feels more like the brand meeting the consumers where they are rather than saying,
Hmm.
oh, we're Louis Vuitton, you should want to come and get luggage because we're the official luggage sponsor of League of Legends, right? Like that would
Right.
be stupid.
Right.
Sure, it might be exciting and interesting to people, but realistically, how many people in the audience are buying a Louis
Louis
Vuitton
Vuitton bag.
truck, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I mean broadly.
Interesting. Interesting. It could also be like a ascension ladder to just getting a skin to maybe a bag later on to maybe making multiple purchases. But it's quite interesting. Um. Wow. Um. How did you end up with Viral Nation?
Um, Good question. I've been in the to go into a little bit of my background. I started off in the market research, as I mentioned, and at that time, gaming clients were not on my radar. We happened to work with a few gaming clients, and I, as a passionate lifelong gamer, was like, wait a minute, could this be? I was seeing the data and insights coming out of these studies that were being run by the company I was with at the time, MRI Simmons. And a lot of the studies were clearly written from the perspective of someone who didn't really understand the gaming space, right? Like they were
Mhm.
misqualifying or different genres or titles or assuming there were certain features of certain games that there really weren't. And so I set out on a little bit of a mission to correct that. And I wanted to get in the room with people at gaming companies and pick their brain and say, hey, like, what would you want in a research study that we aren't providing at the moment that we could provide to help you
Mhm.
to help elucidate these, mysteries about gaming consumers. And from there, I realized that, okay, the gaming industry has a lot of facets to it outside of simply the creation of games, right? For
Right.
someone for me growing up, it was like, oh, if I wanted to work in video games, it meant I had to be a designer. I had to learn how to create a game or write a story for a game or whatever, right? It was all about the game creation. But in reality, there are so many facets of the gaming industry that exist for peripherals or marketing of games and whatnot. So there's a lot of opportunity to be involved. And I was laid off from a company I was at in when COVID happened. A lot of the company got cut. COVID put a lot of people out of work, and it wasn't for any lack of availability. It was just that they basically said to me, "Hey, like we can have you exist in this um, HR function." Like that, it was suddenly a moment where I might
Mhm.
have pivoted careers, and I was like, "No, I don't want to do that." So
It's not
I
gaming.
ended up Right. I ended up taking a little bit of a leap of faith and accepting a severance and leaving the company. And I ended up dedicating a lot of my time and energy to writing articles
Mhm.
about the gaming and esports space on a publication called Media Post.
Right. Mhm.
And I was lucky that my dad knew one of the writers there, and so I said, hey, like, do you think you could connect me? I have like a lot of opinions on the space,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
I am the audience that a lot of marketers are trying to reach right now in gaming, and so I think I have important things to say and ways to dispel myths and help, educate. And I got lucky because one of the first articles I put up ended up being posted on LinkedIn by a pretty senior person at Twitch. So
Mhm.
somebody at Twitch put up this article of mine and was like, if you do it,
Awesome.
I remember it very well. He was like, if you do anything with your weekend, like read this piece about the
That's
differences
amazing.
between gaming and esports because it's really important to understand when you're trying to target these audiences. And so many brands that he was saying he spends time talking to don't understand this delineation. And so there I
Mhm.
was, kind of faking it till I made it, right? And writing these articles, and suddenly I had engagement from people. I was able to go to people and say, hey, I'm a columnist for Media Post, and I'd like to interview you. I wasn't shit. I was totally like, just faking it. But
Mhm.
people were willing to meet with me, and I wrote, what I think were good articles, and they were maybe like a page or 2 pages long each, and I wrote a number of them, and I ended up getting traction. And at the same time, I started to, you mentioned this like esports advisory. I ended up consulting for some brands who said, "Hey, we would love to have you come in and just present to us about what the gaming space is and understanding it and how to think about it." And so I got very lucky, and I was in the room with like American Express and Fox and a couple other brands. And media companies, just telling them, hey, like this is what the gaming space is for a
Mhm.
layperson's understanding, and the questions you should ask yourself as an advertiser or media property about how am I getting involved, right?
Mhm.
And so I ended up landing at a gig at Wasserman, one of the biggest, or now known as The Team, one of the biggest sports marketing agencies in the world, independently owned, so not part of
Mhm.
like WPP or IPG or any of those. And I was working on the gaming and esports account for AT&T. So
Mhm.
AT&T did or does all of its business with the team for sports sponsorship, including basketball, golf, all that
Mhm.
crap. And I was one of the account folks on the game for the gaming side.
Mhm.
So I really cut my teeth there for 2 years, and in that time, I did a lot of sponsorship broadly, right? So it was not only like leagues or teams or uh, you know, yeah, like sponsoring the esports teams the same way that someone would sponsor the Lakers or the Knicks or whatever, right? It's a very similar sort of setup. But then it was also working with influencers directly to make bespoke campaigns in order to help market our products and services. So a great example of this was this AT&T 5G roadshow that we did, where we took a big influencer in the gaming space named TimTheTatMan. We took
Uh-huh.
him on the road and we brought him to locations, iconic locations across the state, three different locations across the US. And using AT&T 5G, he would stream from those locations and play, his favorite games. And we
Beautiful.
would throw in all sorts of surprises and interesting things. And do I think that that activation necessarily got people to go, oh, I'm going to switch to AT&T right now? Not necessarily, but what it did do was it helped ingrain AT&T as a essential product and service to the success of that streamer. And I think as people in his audience who are not necessarily their own homeowners or their own renters, whatever, yet get older, they're going to say, "Oh, I'm going to get AT&T internet," or
Right.
and I think it's all very ironic considering that in most places you don't really have a choice of your internet. It's just sort of especially in New York City, they divvy it up by zone.
Yeah.
But it's a nice way to get people to have a positive affinity with these products and services and check them out for themselves when they're able.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's awesome, man.
Oh, and
What
sorry.
kind?
So
What? Yeah.
your question was, how did I land at Viral Nation? So I
Right.
I did that for 2 years. I changed agencies, and in the changing agencies, I realized that I thought influencer was the most engaging part of what it is to market to gamers because let's be honest, when's the last time you gave a shit about an icon on someone's jersey?
Not that
Do
often.
you know?
No.
Yeah,
I don't
you
even
don't know.
recognize it, honestly. I don't
Right,
notice it.
right, right. I don't remember the last time I gave a shit about someone having a, rotating logo bug on their stream or, Honda is the official sponsor of, the Chicago Bears. Like I don't care about that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
What I care about is my favorite creator who I love to watch who plays similar games to me saying, "Hey, I'm checking out this game. I actually really like it. You should
Mm-hmm.
check it out." Or, "Hey, like I'm going to be playing this and there's a skin that we've made with Activision Blizzard in Call of Duty, and you can get my skin," right? Like those are the things that make me excited to
Right.
support my favorite creators or brands, not, oh, there's a very passive logo placement, and isn't that great? And let's evaluate the, uh, you know, that media value of having an icon on a screen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Attribution is still a very difficult subject matter across all advertising and marketing, right? But nothing sounds more boring to me personally than if you know, are trying to determine where did this person decide to buy Adidas sneakers from? Was it a digital ad that they saw or a
Yeah.
billboard or a commercial or right? Like we don't really know. We just assume it works because we're
Mm-hmm.
putting our brand in front of them enough. They're aware enough of our brand. They're seeing enough of our content that then they decide to buy it.
Yeah.
Whereas in the gaming space, there's I think a very direct pathway to being like, oh, I saw this game. It looks fun. I've seen someone play it, and now I'm going to buy it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep.
So,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
so
Yeah.
I decided that I felt influencer was the most of all the ways you can market to these audiences was
Mm-hmm.
probably the most authentic way to do so, right? Because in everyone's ideal world, I'm not hiring John Smith because he's one of the biggest creators and he's just going to put my shit out there. I'm hiring John Smith because I think he will actually really like this product, and hopefully if he does, he will just organically integrate it into his, existence,
Community.
and
Yeah.
that will
Yeah.
that will cause an actual uptick. Whereas if you are marketing with influencers and it's clearly just that they're doing it for the paycheck, no one cares.
Mm-hmm.
So
So.
went to this other agency, became dedicated to influencer full time. I was working on multiple different accounts, some of which had smaller budgets, and candidly, AT&T had a massive budget for the
Of
gaming
course.
space at the time, especially back in 2020. Like it was still relatively like burgeoning,
Mm-hmm.
and so I realized that hey, I actually kind of prefer to do big, cool shit with a brand with a lot of money to invest in the space, and so
Mm-hmm.
that's part of what led me to Viral Nation was that I saw that they needed someone to come in and lead an account that had a gaming focus, and I threw my hat in the ring and ended up
Yeah.
there.
Pretty cool, man. Pretty cool. Very
Thank you.
interesting journey. What kind of commercials, so what kind of deals do companies make with influencers, gamers? Um, because it may or may not be well trackable, the attribution issue you
Mhm.
mentioned. How do they price the, I guess, the service the influencer are providing?
Meaning, like, how are we evaluating whether an influencer's cost is fair or not? Or what do you mean by that?
Yeah. So that's one part of it, but also like how are the influencers comped for promoting a specific product, and do they have like a tenure of, like, say you're gonna be my sponsor
Sure,
for a year, 6 months, or
sure,
just a trial project? How do you normally negotiate such a contract?
sure. It'll depend on what the client is asking for, really. A lot of times it's a very straightforward, like, one-off campaign where it'll be, hey, we have this product launching or an update to a product launching, and we want, cutting edge tech creators to help us,
Hmm.
demonstrate the product and service to people. And those will be fixed fee, what we call fixed fee contracts, where we're saying, hey, like, one TikTok video and one Instagram reel, and you're going to put a link in your bio for 24 hours, and we're going to pay you 50 grand, right? Whatever it is.
Yeah.
Most often, the best partnerships tend to be, as you say, the ones that sort of are on a retainer, if you will, right? Where we say, hey, for a year, we're going to sponsor you in what we would consider like an always on program, meaning you are an ambassador for our brand for an entire, slew of time. And we will, of course, pay for things like the exclusivity so that they're not working with competitors. Although, having been at enough agencies, I think it's kind of a myth because so many times a, if anyone at the other brand is doing the job that I do, they're gonna see that, oh, this creator has started posting about PlayStation. I'm not gonna recommend them to Xbox, right?
Right.
Because that would be dumb.
Conflict of
So
interest, yes.
exclusivity cracks me up because we pay for exclusivity a lot because we're like, oh, we don't want them talking about competitors. But realistically, I don't think a lot of competitors are gonna want to dip their toes in somewhere that's already,
Interesting.
talking about a different product or service that's a direct competitor. So
Hmm.
that's neither here nor there. That's a little aside from me. But um,
That's an
yeah,
interesting
we
take.
we we
Yeah.
structure a lot of deals differently based on what the asks are. And so if
Hmm.
you're really looking to ingrain yourself with a creator and their audience, one-offs or like month-long campaigns or whatever are never as strong. It's always going to be, multi-touch point partnerships, right? Where we develop a relationship with the creator and their team and they understand our goals and they actually like the product, right? I can't emphasize enough how important it is to find people who
Are
are a
champions of the
good fit.
product. Yeah. Yeah.
Right, right. Like if you don't find a good fit, then you're
Doesn't
cooked.
make sense. Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Cool, man. What's next for you? What are you looking forward to?
I mean, right now I'm very fortunate in that I'm working on these meta campaigns that are at scale that I've never worked on before, right?
Mhm.
I've worked with quite a number of creators in my time, and I've done campaigns with 20 to 40 to 60 creators at one time. Right now, we are in the process of working with probably over 1,000 creators at once, and so that is a really delicate process of not only managing the client, but also managing the team and making sure that the tools and resources we have in place are uh, able to withstand the scale.
Mhm.
Viral Nation, I'll say, I'm not normally like a corporate toot the horn kind of guy, but VN is definitely at the forefront of influencer marketing in the space. I think that Joe and Matt, our co-founders, they've been in the space since it was not really an industry, right? Like over
Mhm.
10
Mhm.
years ago, they were the
Mhm.
ones talking to, the Paul brothers back when they first started, and they're now like household names and, doing WWE and shit. And they don't still work with them, but originally it was signing all these different players or creators and saying, hey, like you should be active on your Instagram, you should be active on your TikTok or whatever. Like let's build this persona and this presence for you. And so I to answer the question more directly, we are making a lot of really great developments around brand safety, which I think is a not often talked about openly subject. in that it is really people say all sorts of crazy shit on social media and on their profiles, right? And it can I'm sure you know, and as everyone does, there are so many situations where people work with a creator and then suddenly, some internet detective that's like a high schooler will be like, didn't this person, say a racial
Yeah.
slur 3 years? And then they'll have the video and everything, and everyone will be
Yeah.
like, oh my God, and the brand will cancel the partnership right away, and it's damage
Yeah.
control and all this stuff. And so we've really done a lot of work with, I hate to say AI because everyone's saying fucking AI right now. But we've done a lot of work to enhance the human touch element that we consider core to the business
Hmm.
with AI tools that help make the job easier. So
Right.
we are not looking to replace people, we are looking to amplify people, right? And part of what that means is stopping the manual process of, oh, I'm going to go through this creator's page and their history and scroll back on their Twitter and see if I see anything weird, which of course is not a foolproof process, to switching to a tool that we have called Viral Nation Secure, where we are able to upload people's profiles into this database where then it scrubs for keywords, violence,
Hmm.
racial slurs, etc. Like we're able to calibrate the AI tool to scrub and transcribe video
Hmm.
content,
Hmm.
which I think is big because obviously there's a lot of situations where a video might, if I see a video of someone playing Call of Duty shooting a gun, right? An AI tool might normally say, "Oh, there's
It's
a gun,
violent, but yeah.
red flag," right? But we're able to contextualize using the tool that, hey, if the gun is in a context of a video game, if you're picking up on those context clues of, oh, it's in Call of Duty or there's a video game or a controller in the shot or whatever, we can ignore those for flags, right?
Hmm.
So but there is still a person that will audit all of the flagged posts to say, hey, is this really a flag or should this be considered fine because of the context involved in the video? So
Yeah.
we have a really robust team that works on this, and I think it's really helpful for not only vetting creators in the upfront, but also monitoring them as they go through our partnership, right? We don't want to just say, hey, you're in the door and everything's kosher. We got to keep tabs on people. And that's not to say that, oh, we're looking for you to mess up. We just want to make sure that whatever you're doing organically in your time and place is aligned with the values of the brand.